It all started with a letter in my mailbox. I'd been living in my quiet little house on the edge of Springfield, a small town in Oregon, for nearly a decade. It wasn't anything fancy, just a modest two-bedroom place with a big backyard that stretched out toward a wooded hill. The neighborhood was peaceful, the kind of place where people waved from their porches and kids rode bikes until the streetlights flickered on. I'd bought the property because it was affordable and came with a decent chunk of land, 5 acres, to be exact. It wasn't much to look at, mostly overgrown grass and a few scraggly trees, but it was mine. Or so I thought. The letter was from the Homeowners Association, or HOA, which I'd reluctantly joined when I moved in. I'd never been a fan of their rules: mow your lawn this way, paint your house that color, but I paid my dues and kept my head down. The letter was short and to the point. Dear resident, the HOA has approved a community enhancement project. Construction will begin next month. Please contact us with any questions. No details, no explanations, just a vague promise of enhancement. I figured they were putting in a new playground or maybe a walking trail. I tossed the letter on my kitchen counter and forgot about it. A few weeks later, I woke up to the sound of heavy machinery rumbling outside my window. I stumbled out of bed, bleary-eyed, and peered through the curtains. My backyard was a war zone. Bulldozers churned up the earth, men in hard hats shouted over the noise, and a massive excavator clawed at the hillside like it was digging for gold. I threw on a jacket and stormed outside, my heart pounding. What the hell is going on? I yelled at the nearest worker, a guy in an orange vest holding a clipboard. HOA project, he said, barely looking up. Train tunnel. Should be done in a few months. A train tunnel? I repeated, dumbfounded. On my property? He shrugged. Talk to the HOA. We're just following orders. I marched back inside, grabbed my phone, and dialed the HOA president, a guy named Richard, who always wore polo shirts and talked like he was running for mayor. Richard, what's this about a train tunnel in my backyard? I demanded. Oh, hey, good to hear from you, Lydia, he said, his voice dripping with fake cheer. Yeah, it's a big project. We're connecting the neighborhood to the old rail line on the other side of the hill. It'll boost property values, bring in tourism, huge win for everyone. Not for me, I snapped. That's my land. You can't just dig it up without my permission. There was a pause, then Richard chuckled. Actually, we can. Check your HOA agreement. There's an easement clause, gives us the right to use portions of your property for community projects. Don't worry, we'll compensate you. Maybe a couple $100. I hung up, my hands shaking. An easement? I'd signed a stack of papers when I bought the house, but I didn't remember anything about giving up my land for a train tunnel. I dug through my filing cabinet, found the HOA contract, and there it was in fine print. The association reserves the right to utilize member properties for infrastructure improvements with reasonable notice and compensation. It was vague enough to cover almost anything, and I'd been too naive to question it. For the next few weeks, I watched helplessly as the construction crew tore through my backyard. The tunnel took shape quickly, a gaping hole in the hillside, reinforced with concrete and steel beams. They worked day and night, the noise drowning out my TV, my sleep, my sanity. I called lawyers, but they all said the same thing: the easement was legal, and fighting it would cost more than I could afford. I was stuck. But then something strange happened. One morning, I noticed the workers weren't there. The equipment sat idle, the tunnel entrance dark and silent. I assumed it was a holiday or a supply delay, but days turned into weeks and no one came back. I called Richard again. What's going on with the tunnel? I asked. He sighed, sounding less chipper than usual. Project's on hold. Funding fell through, the contractor bailed, and we're out of money. It's a mess. So you're just leaving it like that? I said, staring at the half-finished tunnel through my kitchen window. For now, yeah, he replied. We'll figure it out eventually. Sit tight. Sit tight? My backyard looked like a construction site abandoned mid-apocalypse. But as I stood there, an idea started to form. If the HOA wasn't going to finish the tunnel, maybe I could, not for their stupid train idea, but for something else, something that could turn this disaster into an opportunity. I spent the next few days researching. The tunnel was already 200 feet deep, cutting through solid rock toward the old rail line Richard had mentioned. I pulled up county records and discovered that the rail line hadn't been used in decades, but it's still connected to a larger network a few miles away. If I could finish the tunnel and link it up, I'd have a private passageway to a potentially valuable transportation route. The question was, what could I do with it? That's when I remembered a guy I'd met at a bar a few years back, Ethan, a logistics manager for a shipping company. He'd complained about how hard it was to move goods through our rural area because of the winding roads and traffic bottlenecks. A tunnel could be a shortcut, a way to bypass all that. I tracked him down and pitched the idea over coffee. "You're telling me you've got a half-built tunnel on your property?" Ethan said, raising an eyebrow. "And you want to finish it?" "Exactly," I said. "If I can connect it to the old rail line, could your company use it?" He leaned back, thinking. "Maybe. We'd need to widen it, reinforce it, make it safe for trucks or small trains. But yeah, a direct route like that could save us hours." "What's your angle?" "I want to own it," I said. "The HOA started it, but they abandoned it. I'll finish it, and then I'll lease it to you or sell it outright." Ethan grinned. "You're crazy, but I like it. Get me some numbers, and I'll run it by my boss." I didn't have the money to finish the tunnel myself, so I got creative. I took out a home equity loan, maxed out a couple of credit cards, and sold my old pickup truck. It wasn't enough for a full-scale operation, but it got me started. I hired a small crew, 2 guys I knew from high school, Jake and Matt, who'd done construction work, and we spent months hauling dirt, pouring concrete, and installing supports. It was backbreaking, and I second-guessed myself every day, but slowly, the tunnel grew. The HOA didn't notice at first. They were too busy scrambling to cover their own mess, lawsuits from other residents, angry letters about dues going to a failed project. But when Richard finally drove by and saw my crew at work, he lost it. "You can't do this," he shouted, storming up my driveway. "That's our tunnel." "Not anymore," I said, crossing my arms. "You abandoned it." "I checked the law. Once you stopped work and left it on my property, it became mine through adverse possession. I've been maintaining it, improving it. It's my asset now." "That's ridiculous," he sputtered. "We'll sue you." "Go ahead," I said. "I've got receipts, permits, everything." "See you in court." They didn't sue. They couldn't afford to. The HOA was broke, and I had the upper hand. By the time the tunnel was finished, 300 feet long, wide enough for a small freight train, and fully connected to the old rail line, I was ready to make my move. Ethan's company was the first to bite. They offered to lease the tunnel for $50,000 a year, with an option to buy later. It was a solid deal, but I held out. Word had spread, and soon I had interest from other businesses, a trucking firm, a local manufacturer, even a startup that wanted to run electric delivery vans through it. The tunnel wasn't just a shortcut, it was a gold mine. Then came the big offer. A national logistics corporation contacted me out of the blue. They'd heard about the tunnel through industry chatter and saw its potential. "We'll buy it outright," their rep said over the phone. $5 million cash. Take it or leave it. I nearly dropped the phone. $5 million for a tunnel that started as an HOA screw-up? I took a deep breath and said, "Let me think about it." I didn't need long. I called them back the next day and accepted. The deal closed within a month. Lawyers, paperwork, a wire transfer that made my bank account look like a typo. I paid off my loans, bought a new truck, and moved out of the neighborhood. The HOA tried to claim a piece of the profits, but their lawyers admitted they had no case. The tunnel was mine, fair and square. Now I live in a house by the lake, far from HOAs and their nonsense. I've got a boat, a dog named Max, and enough money to never worry again. Sometimes I drive by the old place and see that tunnel entrance, now bustling with trucks and vans. It's a reminder of how a disaster turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. The HOA thought they'd won when they dug up my backyard, but in the end, I was the one who came out on top. With my newfound wealth, I decided to give back to the community that had been my home for so long, minus the HOA, of course. I donated a portion of the money to the local school, funding a new playground for the kids who used to ride their bikes in the neighborhood. I also set up a small scholarship fund for high school students in Springfield, hoping to help them chase their dreams without the financial struggles I'd faced. As for me, I'm content. I spend my days fishing on the lake, taking Max for long walks, and enjoying the quiet life I'd always wanted. The tunnel, once a symbol of frustration, became my ticket to freedom and a lesson that sometimes the worst situations can lead to the greatest opportunities.